Good evening, race fans. This is Chris Lehman, joined today by Larry B., the founder of iSports Radio. We've got a big weekend of motorsports to cover. We had the Monaco GP, the Indy 500, and of course the Coke 600, which was rained out on Sunday, so we actually got to watch that on Monday, spread out our weekend. And to help me talk about it all today, we've got Larry. Larry, how are you doing this evening?
What's going on, Chris? It is a pleasure to be here tonight, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is truly a show that none of us could miss. I know Daryl and Michael, they couldn't be here tonight, but I'll tell you what, Chris, there was not going to not be an extra mile tonight if I had something to say about it.
Yeah, we've been, for the last hour, trying to get all the stuff sorted out, so we're finally here.
Hey, we're here, and we are sounding good, man. We got it all situated, and I'm just really excited, man. We had the biggest weekend in motorsports. All three races did not disappoint. I am so excited to get into the action for the next 30 minutes. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think we might as well start right off with Monaco, where we started the weekend out, and as always, it was the Monaco qualifying on Saturday that determined the race.
It was. And you know what, Chris? Honestly, I guess, I don't want to sound like that jerk, okay? Because I know you're a fan of Monaco, okay?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not a fan, Chris, because I've historically been a fan of Monaco. I really have. But just the last, decade has been kind of boring, just because it's so correct, Saturday determines the winner. And, I actually enjoyed seeing a lot of the battles for second and fourth and fifth and sixth, because, of course, that big old giant flag behind you, which I am not anti-Verstappen. I love this kid. I'll tell you right now. I remember 3 years ago, and you can. I guarantee you can go back to this race right now, Chris. But a couple of years ago, right before Verstappen was terrorizing Formula One, this was the Lewis Hamilton period, if you will, and they were at COTA, and they actually told him to back off and to not drive the car so hard. And he said over the headset, "I did not come here to get fourth place." So, in my opinion, I love the fire in this guy. I love it. I love how he's so I'm happy that he won, but I just feel like the competition was dead. He won by 37 seconds, Chris?
It was, yeah, that's a little skewed though, because Aston Martin completely binned the strategy. They pulled in Fernando. They put him on a set of, I believe it was, they put him on a set of mediums, and then the very next lap have to bring him in for intermediates. And apparently there was a miscommunication on pit road that led to that, according to the team anyway.
Yeah, this this was just one of those races, brother. I'll tell you right now, my all-time... The thing that I guess couldn't stand most about Monaco over the years is just the competition's not there with Formula One,
Yeah.
And it's just this race is such a crown jewel, but unfortunately, it's just one of those things where you just got to say, I'm watching this because I love racing, not necessarily because the race is going to be super exciting.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of where I am too, a little bit, and is that especially Monaco, it's just the prestige, right? There's so much money required in motorsports, and IndyCar has the Indy 500. That's where they're rolling out the red carpet for their sponsors. NASCAR has the Daytona 500. They're rolling out the red carpet for their sponsors. And Formula One has Monaco, and that's where they roll out their red carpet for everybody that puts money into the sport. It's a necessary evil as far as I'm concerned, but I mean, just the history. And I know that you have to go back a couple decades to really find good racing, but this is to this day, load up F1 2022 and try to run a halfway decent lap at Monaco, unless you're a Formula One racer, you're not putting in a decent time. So it's a very challenging track, especially with these bigger cars. So there is its own set of skill that's required to navigate these cars so quickly around a track like that.
Agreed. No, absolutely, Chris. This is something that I'm really happy that you brought up because, no, absolutely. See, okay, to those people who feel that, okay, the race is boring, I'm not going to watch it, or, it's just, no, it is absolutely, you are 1,000,000% correct. This is, you get in the car and try and do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I got to say to those people. Because, number one thing, handling a Formula One car is hard enough on its own. Number two thing, handling a Formula One car on this narrow little track and not wrecking it is another thing. The next thing is, Chris, these guys were battling the rain. When the freaking rain came out, these guys got the rain tires on. I forgot who it was, Chris. I really do. I'm forgetting. But somebody did not have, they didn't have the rain tires. They were sliding all over the track. I forgot.
Yeah, I can't think.
But yeah, Chris, I mean, so honestly, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, just seeing this race happen is something that is special to me. Because I'll tell you what, I can sit here and complain and be like, oh my gosh, the race was boring, the race was one on Saturday, blah, blah, and I can say that all I want. And it's true. Okay, I can have the opinion, whatever. But I'll tell you right now, Chris, if Monaco didn't exist no more, I'd kind of be like, hey, Can we get that back?
Yeah, I mean you're missing something. Exactly. And we got 22 because China was canceled. Sorry, it wasn't China. That was already canceled. That brought it from 24 to 23. But Emilia-Romagna was canceled last week. So now we're down to 22 races this season, and what that means is you have 21 good races where you can watch it, and it's fair to complain. But Monaco, it's just the asterisks on the schedule, right? Everybody knows the racing's not going to be great, but it's a necessary evil. If you want the money in the sport, you need to let the rich people have their fun, and that's what Monaco is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what it is. And you know what, like I said, Chris, honestly, even to us, who don't have all that money and we're just fans of the sport, it's true, man. It's something. I remember, it's kind of funny, and I'm gonna do this really, really fast, I promise, but I'm a big fan of Sinbad. Really clean, fun comedy back in the day. When I was very young, very, very, very young, when he was doing his stand-up, like in his prime. And I remember he said, like back in the 70s, like, or even with us too, growing up as little kids, before the age of 10 even, our moms would go and buy us clothes. Sometimes we didn't have a choice. They bought us clothes. And when you came home from school, your clothes were on the bed. Yep. And that's all there was to it. And guess what you were going to wear, Chris? You were going to wear those clothes. And when your clothes got too small, those became your play clothes. Yes.
Or your little siblings.
Or your little siblings. Absolutely, Chris. So it's funny because Sinbad has a comedy where he says, you go in your room and you see this brand new shirt on your bed and it's ugly. And you're like, I'm not going to wear that ugly shirt. So your mom got mad and took the shirt away. But then you didn't have another shirt to wear, so you would go begging for the shirt. Like, Mom, I didn't say the shirt was ugly. I said it was beautiful. I loved it. Can I have the shirt? Please, can I have the shirt back? So that's like, I felt like that with Monaco. You can play all you want. If Monaco were to ever go away, I'd be the same way. Like, can we please have it back, please? I was kidding. I was kidding.
Now, Daryl and Michael would certainly not have the same opinion as us, but I think they would at least agree that it is a necessary evil.
100% agreed.
So, just kind of a couple quick talking points here. Mercedes officially has side pods. That is huge news. This track is not fair to gauge what type of performance gains they're going to get off of that. So I think we really probably need to give it to Austria or even the British GP at Silverstone before we really come to our own conclusions on it. And also remember, they didn't really change the floor. These cars are very floor aerodynamically dependent, so it's just a step in the right direction for Mercedes. We'll see how it pans out over the next couple of races, but they're putting the parts in place for their next year's car. They're going to spend the offseason developing that underbody, and we should see a much more competitive car.
I love that, and I want to see that. Lewis Hamilton, he deserves that. Before he racks it up one day, I want to see him compete for another one. Max is running away right now. It's nice seeing Perez be able to challenge him. It's nice to see these guys go back and forth. But at the same exact time, don't get me wrong, Max is going to dominate. But it's true. I want to see Mercedes be more competitive too next year. And I want to be able to see, especially, can you imagine this, Chris? In Lewis Hamilton's last year, decides to call it a career. Wouldn't you love to see that final race, win or lose, come down to that final race of the season? You know what I mean? Like win or lose, and that's what I want. I'm gonna go ahead and say this too, real quick, Chris. I love Formula One, but it's the same exact way that I love the English Premier League. It's the same exact way that I love the German Bundesliga. It's the same exact way that I love Italian Serie A. We're Americans, Chris, so we love playoffs. We love things where, and all those soccer leagues, they play 38 games, and whoever wins, the most points. So you get teams who win. The season's over in May. You get teams who won already at the beginning of April. You know what I mean? Because they're so far. So it's just like Formula One. So I just want that competition back. And honestly, I love this. Mercedes, especially with how they started. Oh my gosh, Chris, the problems. Oh my goodness. I thought what's his name was going to lose his job, the head honcho over there. I forgot his name, but we were talking about that in the group with you, myself, and Chris. And seriously, man. But yeah, by next season, I really want the Silver Arrows to be back to where they were. Yeah,
I think the cost cap really puts a damper on development, especially you're planning out your developments months in advance, if not a year in advance. You're sitting down strategizing, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck? And Mercedes, this is going to get them a little bit of gain, but realistically they don't have an underfloor built for these side pods, so their gains are going to be very minimal. But I look for the next couple upgrade packages, see what they're bringing to aid and develop the car with these new side pods. But looking at next week, when we're in Spain, probably not really going to have huge gains, and that's just what it is. But they are 1 point behind Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship, so they are making up ground pretty quickly. And I had stated earlier in the year that Lance Stroll was going to cost Aston Martin second in the Constructors, and that is coming true.
Yeah, he's definitely not helping very much, and it's one of those facts that matters. Is at the end of the day, Chris, do you say his seat's hot right now? Just give it to us.
It can't be. Not when Daddy owns the team.
I had to say that to contradict everything. No, absolutely.
But because if there was one dad on the grid besides Jos Verstappen that would kick their kid out of the seat because they're not doing good, it's Lawrence Stroll. Absolutely. Yeah. If that guy sees P2, there's nothing he's going to do this year, realistically. But no. Fernando is driving the wheels off that car. Absolutely driving the wheels off of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how much Lawrence, because Fernando's doing what he can, right? He's finishing P3 almost every race, P2 this past weekend. He's doing what he can. He's never going to win over a Red Bull right now. So you need that second car to step up. And this is where that team, that second driver, this is where you need to have, bring it back to football, Larry. Everybody, and we're going to talk Bengals, right? So we go out and we bought a Cadillac in Jamar Chase, right? And everybody says, yeah, you got the Escalade, but your offensive line is the engine, and you guys are a 4-cylinder that's actually running on 2, right? Agreed. So you have to have complementary pieces. So Fernando Alonso performing is only as good as Lance Stroll in that second car. Jamar Chase is only as good as the amount of time that offensive line that has been revamped, and we'll be seeing each other on head-to-heads this fall. Yeah, Aston Martin needs to do something to further that car. And maybe, a little bit of news this week broke, Aston Martin is going to have a new engine supplier in 2026, which is Honda. Obviously, has been a partner with Red Bull for the last couple of years and will be partnered with them through the 2025 season. Max was a little taken back by this. He didn't seem overly happy, but big news, Ford is coming in. Ford is going to be supplying Red Bull, so Honda. When we got a full episode, we'll talk about it. Maybe Daryl and I will talk about it next week, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah, there is, and that's pretty awesome. I'm really happy to hear that.
And then we'll just do a quick wrap up on Formula One, then we'll move over to IndyCar. So we're just going to talk Max Verstappen's last 50 starts, which is the start of the 2021 season to today, right? And this is not betting advice, so please do not take this as betting advice. But a lot of betting sites will give you 10th, they'll finish 10th or better. In the last 50 races, Max Verstappen has finished 10th or better 47 times.
Unreal, man. I mean, that is awesome. The guy racked up his 39th victory. I mean, that just goes to show you. Honestly, and I just gotta say, I know the car has everything to do with it. I get it. But at the same that time, does it? Because Max Verstappen is one hell of a driver. Look what he did when Red Bull wasn't the best car out there, and look how strong he still finished. Now you give this guy a car that is extremely fast. He's never going to give that freaking lead away, man. I love it.
Yeah, and this is something that we talk about, and even as a Max fan, I'm not oblivious to this, but a lot of Max fans will talk about Lewis Hamilton's domination and how it was car-oriented, and it's not. Right? With the exception of Nico Rosberg, Lewis has been the dominant driver at Mercedes every year he's won the championship. Right? Him and Rosberg obviously went back-to-back, and there was that ill-fated year where Rosberg got the championship from him. But Lewis has always outdriven his teammates, with the exception of one season. And you can say the same thing about Max. He's outdriving his teammates. He's outdriving the rest of the field. If we look at the last 50 races, he has 29 wins out of the last 50. And out of the last 50 races, podiums, I got to do a little quick math here. He's got 6 podiums this year, 17 podiums last year, 18 podiums the year before, 41 podiums out of 50 races. So again, not betting advice, but I put my money on him.
Yeah, I'm with you. The guy has a pretty good chance of winning every time he gets in the car. I think we can both agree on that.
Absolutely. So now let's jump over here to what many call the best race of the weekend, and as you can see by our notes, IndyCar gets a little... it doesn't get as much attention. But the Indy 500 was definitely the best race of the weekend, in my opinion. We can talk about the big talking point that all the national media heads are talking about, which is, there was a very lucky woman who drove to the racetrack, was chauffeured home, and she won a new car. But I think the biggest talking point of this whole race is that the IndyCar purists will never be able to mention NASCAR doing a green-white checkered restart again, because that was absolutely shameful what happened. Absolutely shameful. I wish Daryl was here, because if Daryl was here and we started at 8 p.m., he might just be finishing his speech on the soapbox.
Chris, you hit it right on the head. Daryl, yeah, if you're listening, buddy, yeah, it's true. We would have to Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Wings Oh my, it's coming up in 11 minutes exactly. Let's just be real. If the show would have started at 8 p.m. Eastern, you guys might actually have overridden Zach in that show tonight for 3 hours. Yeah, Zach would have been like, I can't get on. What the hell? But no, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to tell you like this. I understand and I know the IndyCar's never done that. But how many wrecks did we have on this restart? This was a wild Indy 500. There's nothing else they can do, man. That might have been the longest Indy 500 I've ever seen in my entire life. That sucker ran long. And at the end, I get it. I understand. I know. Come out of the pits, and guess what? That is your pace lap. And then here we go. That's it. Then you get one shootout at the end. I understand, and I know everyone could be really irritated and bothered by that. But at the end of the day, Chris, guess what? There's a reason why some people say Montana is still the greatest of all time over Tom Brady. Because he played in a different era. Montana would get freaking lit up. Now you can't touch the quarterback. If you touch the quarterback, oh my gosh, Chris, they're going to freaking suspend you from the game. I mean, what the hell? But once again, it's a different... So at the end of the day, you just got to play with the rules you're given. And I know some people don't like that. I don't like it either, especially as a defender. But when it comes down to it, it's what happened, Chris. You know what I mean? It's what happened. It's what IndyCar decided to do. And I know it's hard. It's tough to accept. But it's what it is. You know what? Hey. That was one hell of a finish. You got to give it up to Newgarden for the way he handled that. He did an amazing job. And realistically, man, I know, and I'm going to catch hate for this. I get it, but you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And Ericsson was very, very irritated. But what do you do? I mean, realistically, hey, they told him, I'm sure, on that pace lap, you got to defend this lead. And unfortunately, he didn't. And
yes,
it's just the way it goes. And I know. I'm sorry. And I may catch hate, like I said, Chris, but that's my take.
Yeah. No, and just to go back to the quarterback thing, I know that, a big part of protecting the quarterback came from a Tom Brady game that we know is infamous for the tuck rule, which I believe has a certain amount of trauma for you as a Raiders fan.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Chris, is that rule doesn't exist anymore. It got used one time ever, and wouldn't you know it, it was against the freaking Raiders, as fate would have it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. Appreciate
you're
it.
You're welcome. So maybe something that, just back in 2012, the Canadian GP was the longest race in Formula One history. It ran for 4 hours, 4 minutes, 39 seconds, and what did we see as a result of that? We saw the clock. So Formula One has a 3-hour total window to get the race. That includes red flags and what have you. But 3 hours. If you're not done after 3 hours, you call it. It doesn't matter if you're on lap 2. After 3 hours, that's when the race ends. So maybe IndyCar should institute something like that.
I agree.
NASCAR certainly could, in my opinion, but that's a topic for another day. So I got a text message from Daryl. I asked him what his thoughts on the green-white checker was, which actually wasn't even a green-white checker. It was sort of like that. We institute that with a green flag, run a lap, you get the white flag, you run a lap, and then you collect the checker. This race was, they waved the green and the white flag at the same time, and you got a one-lap shootout. So Daryl says this. Okay, on the IndyCar green-white checkered, I'm conflicted because y'all already know how I feel about the red flag. It is not a let's get a green flag finish flag. But IndyCar has decided they're going... Okay, but IndyCar, he must be using text to talk. But IndyCar has decided they're going to abuse it because for some reason we must have a green flag finish. So whatever it is, it is. Oh, Daryl just made the same comparison that I was about to make. Ericsson can be mad all he wants, but if he didn't weave down the front stretch when he got the uber jump on the restart, he probably wins that race. Fair point.
Boom. Boom.
But at this point, I would rather IndyCar institute green-white checker to... but But at this point, I would rather IndyCar institute green-white checkered, maybe rather than continue to misuse the red flag because it brings up issues of race fixing and rigging. Roger Penske's car won. Roger Penske obviously owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's some conspiracies, especially when the car that... Oh, yep. Daryl's next sentence. Especially when the car that won the race is owned by the guy that owns the racetrack. And here's the comparison that I was about to make. Also, I've heard some people compare this to Abu Dhabi 2021. It is nowhere near that bad. I'll speak on behalf of Daryl because nobody was robbed of a championship, their 8th championship at the Indy 500. So, of course, it's not quite as bad. However, the complete and blatant disregard for the rules is equally as bad, in my opinion. And we may have... Oh, nope, he's still there.
Dude, he hit it on the head.
Yeah.
It's I know. It makes, I get it. If some funny things are going on, I totally understand. And it's hard to not jump to those conclusions, to say those things. I totally understand. But I don't know. I mean, at the end, I hate to say it again, and this is not, I am by no way disagreeing with what Daryl just said or anything. I completely agree, but it just sucks because, like for instance, right now, Chris, I got to take these stupid state tests right now. I'm nearly a full-time teacher. I am like 2 inches away from being a full-timer. But the stupid state says I have to take these dumb tests. I have a freaking master's, and I'm getting a second one, Chris. But apparently, I'm too stupid to teach teach school unless I pass these 2 classes. Apparently, and you know what sucks? My wife, I gripe and complain and moan and all this, and it's hilarious because my wife is always like, "I know, but you still got to do it." And it's like, and it's the truth. It's the truth. So it's the same exact thing, Chris. I get it. It sucks, but you gotta go with whatever it is. If it's a green white checker that the way that was or whatever, and it is what it is. That for this particular race, that's what it was. That's what happened, and it's true. Ericsson had every chance. There were 2 cars in the first P1 and P2, right, Chris? When those flags hit, and that means for next lap, both those drivers had a chance to win it, and unfortunately, Ericsson didn't hold. Newgarden found a way. And you know what, man? It sucks, but what do you do? I still got to take these dumb tests. You can't hit the quarterback no more. All these different comparisons, all these different things, and guess what? Unfortunately, that was the way that one ended, and well, I guess that's just the way. How does it go, Chris? That old school saying, that's the way the cookie crumbles?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely it is.
Yeah, it's funny, Chris. I hear some of these older teachers that I work with, and they're like, "You got to take a test." Back in my day, I didn't have to take a test, and I'm like, "Oh, gee, thank you, California." Anyway.
Yeah. So the big talking point out of the Indy 500 was, of course, the tire, Kyle Kirkwood's tire that went flying past the stands, actually.
That was scary.
Right into the parking lot. When I was watching it live, I texted Daryl and Michael, and I was like, "Holy S word! Did you guys just see that? A tire flew into the stands." Thankfully, it didn't. But I saw it live before they even showed the replays, and that's what I saw. So I was kind of freaking out there for a couple minutes. But this lucky lady, she got quite the experience out of an old car. I wish it would have happened to me. So she's getting a new car, courtesy of Roger Penske, and I think she got a pretty cool experience out of it too. She got to go down on the track. She got some behind the scenes stuff, and she got chauffeured home. So
that's crazy.
She got a DD if that's what she was doing, and she got it complimentary. So hats off to her. That's awesome. And you got a story for life, right?
No, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's scary when things like that happen, but I'm glad that, the sanctioning bodies, like IndyCar, anything that may happen to anybody, I love it when they do the right thing. I love that.
Yep. So, moving on to the Coke 600, Mr. Penske sweeps the weekend with Ryan Blaney, ending, I believe it was a 59 race winless streak. So really happy for Blaney. I'm a Blaney fan. Just a great dude. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on the Coke 600?
Whoops, I was muted. Man, I'll tell you right now. You know, I'm on the West Coast, okay? You're over there on the East Coast, Chris. So the Monaco started a little bit later this year, actually. It started at, 9 o'clock for you. It started at 6 o'clock in the morning for me. Usually it starts at 5 in the morning. So my Memorial Day usually goes, wake up super early, watch the race from 5 to about 6:30, wait around a little bit, watch the Indy 500 from about 9:45 to about almost 12. Then enjoy the rest of the day until about 3, and then around 3:30ish Pacific time, watch Charlotte all the way. You know, the Coke 600 all the way until about 7 o'clock. Now, of course, it's a 3-hour difference from you guys over there on the East Coast, but that's my day. Chris, I had a very sad face when that stupid rain kept on falling, and unfortunately, my wife was over here, you know, we're taking a break from the races and everything, and I turned the TV back on in the front room, and I was all happy, and Chris, I saw smoke, good old Tony Stewart, and the crew sitting up there, and I hear Tony Stewart say something that it hurt, because he said, well, I'll tell you what, tomorrow when these guys get on this track, tomorrow? Like, Chris, I was like a little kid who had his like PlayStation taken away. I was like, no, you stupid rain, you ruined it. Like, I was so mad because to me, those 3 races on one day, they're just something you can't replace, and that stupid rain. So anyway, the very next day, of course, I watched the race from 12 Pacific all the way until about 4 Pacific, but unfortunately, it just didn't feel the same. Anyway, so let me get that out of the way. But anyway, it was a good race. In my opinion, you know what? I thought it was very good. Nice, lengthy, strong race, as we always see. It was a good one. I'm not going to say it was the greatest Coca-Cola 600 ever, but I'll tell you right now, I enjoyed it. I loved the race. I thought it was very well run. I thought that Blaney definitely earned it. I am a William Byron fan, okay, so it kind of sucked to see him take home the silver, if you will. But you know what, Blaney, he drove so well, and it was a very, very good race. But when it came down to it, Blaney was the guy. You know, when he got out front, he wasn't going to lose that lead, and I really, really enjoyed how well he gets maneuvered. So he did a hell of a job, and hats off to him. Overall, it's a very, very, very good race. But yeah, man, Blaney just had that car this weekend. He had the Max Verstappen car is what he had.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely, especially on the short run, he was just taking off. Willie B obviously had a really good long run car. And actually, I was getting pissed because with like 50 to go, I was on DraftKings trying to get some bets in because they were moving back and forth on Blaney and Byron. And at one point, Blaney was plus 350. So I was like, oh, I want that, because I knew that there was going to be some last minute, like a last minute 10 to go caution. I knew something was coming. So I was trying to get my bet in with Blaney at 350, and DraftKings for whatever reason just kept like S-ing the bed, you know. And I couldn't get my bet in, but I was like, come on, you know, because I had, put money on Blaney or Verstappen and obviously won, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to double my money right here, you know. Didn't happen, unfortunately. So I feel a little slighted by DraftKings. Damn
it, DraftKings.
Yeah, but Yeah, no, I thought it was a great race. It was actually almost kind of nice to have it run on Monday. Just kind of broke up the days a little bit. It's almost like a disappointing. Monday's almost like a hangover. You know, in most years when all three races run the same day, Monday's your hangover. But Monday was like, pardon my French, but it was like hot as balls up here.
Oh my
and so,
God.
so not being outside was actually pretty nice. Like during the high part of the day, so it was actually pretty good. Sunday was a little bit nicer of a day, and I spent my afternoon outside landscaping. So for me, it worked out pretty good.
There it is. You know what? It worked out then.
Yeah. So there's actually some really big fallout that we have to talk about after the Coke 600, Larry. And the first one we're going to talk about is Chase Elliott is suspended for one race for turning Denny Hamlin into the wall. On Denny Hamlin's podcast, Actions Detrimental, which I don't know, do you listen to that, Larry?
I didn't know he had a podcast, but now I want to hear it.
It's with Dale Jr.'s company, Dirty Mo Media, and Denny does a show, and it's like he records it. Him and his publicist record it like Sunday on the plane ride home, or like first thing Monday morning, and it is out and you get raw, uncensored Denny Hamlin. It's actually great. Boy. There's only like 10 episodes out, and it's easily one of my favorite podcasts. Like the minute that I get the notification on my phone that it's up, I'm right there. I'll drop whatever I'm doing. And that podcast is actually what got him suspended a couple weeks ago. Not suspended. He got a penalty a couple weeks ago for retaliating on track, and it's because he admitted it on his podcast. Like he said, it was when they were at Phoenix. He ran Chastain up into the wall. He admitted it on his podcast, and they used that as evidence to I think, a $50,000 fine. So, yeah. So you got to be careful what you say. But yeah, Actions Detrimental, definitely a great podcast, and Denny was really talking up everything because he knew that NASCAR would be listening before they issued their penalty, and he was just talking it up about how Chase needs to be parked, blah blah blah. So some awesome news, Larry. Corey LaJoie is finally getting a shot in good equipment. He's been saying for years, you put me in a good car and I'll get you a good finish. He is filling in for Chase Elliott. He will be in the number 9 Napa car. And Carson Hocevar is going to be in the Spire 7 this weekend. So Corey LaJoie, this is time to perform, right? You're getting your one shot in a good car. You look back, Max Verstappen, first start with Red Bull Racing, gets a win. Corey LaJoie, we are expecting big things out of you because you have been telling us for years, give me a good car, I will give you a good result.
Let's see it. He's what, 30, 31, 32? I mean, he's definitely not old. He has plenty of tread on his tires. The guy, and it's true. Let's see it. You know, he's been around NASCAR a long time. The name is something that you would see just, synonymous with the sport because, if you follow NASCAR, he's been around for a bit. And it's true. I want to see that. I love that. I want to see if he gets the shot, show us, and honestly, dude, I think he's about it. I'm just telling you, once again, going full circle, Max Verstappen at Coda a couple years ago. I did not come here to finish 4th. And he was like 35 seconds behind Hamilton. He didn't give a crap. That's the kind of person you want behind the wheel because he's going to fight like hell to get you a win. And you know what? Let's see it. If LaJoie can do exactly what he says, I'm excited because you know what? This just goes to show you, let's do it. Let's get those hungry, crazy dudes who are like, that's right, I'm going to drive this damn car into the freaking ground before I ever take a bad finish, and that's the kind of guys you want. That's like in football. If your guys out there are just playing crappy or whatever, I'll put a crazy freaking defensive lineman in at fullback. Okay, If my fullback doesn't want to block people, my crazy nut job over there wearing number 98, who's a complete insane psycho who just wants, he's starving to touch the field. Yeah, my fullback better not mess up because I'm going to put that guy in there, and that dude probably will start next week. I'm just saying, you want those kind of people who are.
Yep. No, I loved it. Back a couple of years ago, Domata Peko for the Bengals. He was a defensive lineman, and whenever they needed a fullback, they called up old 97 or 96 actually, and he ran him home. Especially every game against the Steelers, he would always come out for a goal line run.
Get a it.
I remember one year, and maybe after this, Larry, look it up. Domata Peko, he just destroyed Troy Polamalu right on the goal line for I think it was Rudy Johnson ran in a tutty.
I remember. That's a big man.
So
like, you give a psycho, okay, you give somebody who's starving to be on that football field, or in this case, you give somebody who's starving to be in that seat of a very competitive car. Let's get some popcorn, man.
Yep, absolutely. So this is not betting advice, but I did check DraftKings. So Corey LaJoie is plus 400 to finish top 5. If you're not familiar with betting terms, everything is based on a $100 bet. So if it's plus 400, you bet $100, you win 400. So plus 1,000 to finish top 3 and plus 3,500 to win. So those are actually some pretty decent odds. I'm probably going to put in a couple bucks on a top 5, just because he's been talking, right? And he's got all the talent. We see him at plate tracks. He's always running towards the front at the plate track, so he clearly has the talent. We'll see what he does when he's actually in a car. And then the last thing that we have to talk about, Larry, as we kind of fade out here, Chase Briscoe, the 14 team for Stewart-Haas Racing, was issued a massive, and I mean massive, penalty after the Coke 600. They had counterfeit single-source supplier parts on the car, specifically something on the underbody. That is, and the statement out of Stewart-Haas Racing was garbage. They were basically like, "Oh, this is a quality control issue." Quality control is not counterfeiting. This is not a quality control issue. This is a you got caught issue, right? So Chase Briscoe was penalized 120 regular season points, which is massive, 25 playoff points, which is even bigger. Crew chief John Klossmeyer is suspended for 6 races, and they had a $250,000 fine. That is a massive penalty package. It's an L3, so it's, I don't know if it goes any higher than that. I don't think it does.
That's, wow. They threw the book at him, man. Oh, my gosh. Well, at the end of the day, what do you say? You know, you don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right? I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, what more do you say, Chris? I mean, they got caught. You know, I mean, it's one of those things. You know, you're going to deflate footballs. I'm just kidding. But you know, I don't know. But I mean, that's pretty massive, man. That's a major slap. But it's an example, right? NASCAR, just you know, here's what's going to happen to you if you do this. So, I mean, hey, you know what? If that's the penalty, then, well, hopefully he'll learn from that, and hopefully everybody else will not think about doing anything either. It's hard. It's hard because I feel like there's a lot of gray area, Chris. I feel like if you try something to improve, unfortunately, you're going to risk a penalty. And that's kind of hard, man, because, you know, I kind of feel like, okay, call me dumb. That's okay. That's fine with me. On air, that's fine. But I kind of feel like motorsports is a little bit harder than human beings because, let's be real, okay? You got freaking Mr. Steroid Man over here shooting up, okay? Or taking HGH or whatever. Okay, he's clearly doing something illegal. Okay, totally. But, you know, this guy over here who's just taking protein and busting his ass, you know, it's not the same thing. But in a car, it's kind of hard because I kind of feel like even the smallest little tweaks sometimes gets you in trouble. And that's kind of hard because there is no such thing as taking protein for the car. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. or it's kind of hard. It's a very, very hard thing. So I don't know. like a couple weeks ago with the Loomers or Lemurs or whatever those things are called. Remember with the
Louvers,
I forgot.
yeah, for Hendrick, all 4 cars.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard. That gray area. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know the rules. I don't know, but man, that is a tough area. So I kind of felt like, yeah, man, in motorsports, you have to walk on eggshells, man. That's very tough.
Yes, it is. And I think that's going to do it for us here. We had until 10:15, and we are certainly pushing that, aren't we?
Yeah, Zach is just listening.
So, thank you for joining me, Larry. I really appreciate it. Thank you for getting me all set up. And, we had some technical difficulties to work through. Make sure that you give Larry B a follow. He is on Twitter at with 2 E's, _LB53. I am at Fiji Sims. The Extra Mile show is at Extra Mile IESR. The Extra Mile main feed is at IE Sports Radio. Follow us on the socials. We say it every week. Here's our ads and stuff, but you found us by now, right? So make sure you give everybody a follow, and as Daryl would always say, we'll see you at the next green flag. I could never say it better than he does. So that's going to be it for us tonight. Thank you for listening, and we will see you at the next green flag.